post. Dan Wegner has been one of our strongest BoulderNet supporters, and in fact is our sponsor. He helps cover our meetup fees every 6 months, so thank you for that. He's just one of the best around as far as career information. He has got a company, a Thriive Consulting, and he is with Lee Heck Harrison, and he's a certified executive career coach. And Dan is capable of further introducing himself. Thank you so much, Dan, for being here.
Thanks, Don. It's great to be here. I always enjoy being with you guys. You know, we talk about networking as being so powerful and giving back. And this is both of those things for me. And I'll be actually talking about it today in career transition way back in 2012. And that's where I found BoulderNet and the value of it. And kind of the full life cycle. Then became a hiring manager, hired people from the group into my company. And now I'm coming back as a subject matter expert to be able to help you guys in your career search. So this is always so meaningful for me. And it's great to hear about all of you and your focus, everything from very focused and very targeted to reinvention of self. So all that's so pertinent, and it's just a powerful way to go through the process and to be able to do that. So first thing is I want to let you know that I want to help you guys. And so part of that is I give a free consultation. And if you haven't pulled up the chat, go ahead and pull that up and take a second and copy my email address out of the chat. It's dan@thrivegroup.com. Thrive has 2 I's. And I know there's a couple of marketers on, including James. So if you want to figure out why there's 2 I's, go onto my website and there's a page that talks about why that focus of 2 I's is there. But it's just unique. So go ahead and copy that email address. And it's just a way to get a time to chat with me about your focus and the ways that you want to move forward and how I might be able to help you in doing that. So I want to make sure everybody's seeing the presentation now.
Yep, story in 4 parts.
There we go. Good. So what I want to do is help you today. I want to give you motivation. I want to give you insight. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to present it in the form of a story. And it's a true story. And it's actually the story of my career. And what I want to give you is illustration through some of my successes and some of the challenges, because we all have both. And it's good to look at both of those and see where we can learn, how we can learn from those things and take them and apply them to you in your career search. So I want to help give you insight that will help you succeed in your search, provide encouragement. As a couple of people mentioned, you know, this is a challenging time. Career transition is always challenging, but there's a lot of great stuff. There's a lot of opportunity. So I want to give you that motivation. I want to give you the encouragement. I want to give you the insight to help you be successful in your career search. So, you know, we talk about introducing ourselves, and I'm the founder of Thriive Career Coaching, and I am passionate about helping you identify your unique skills and experience, and then helping you brand that, helping you articulate it in a way that makes you truly irresistible to your target companies. And when we do that, you get fulfillment. You get a career that gives you the compensation you're looking for. You get a career that gives you fulfillment. So what we're talking about today is ways to achieve those things. So coming back to that story, we'll start off with that first part, which is the big corp. That's my term for that big corporate entity where I started the career. But you know what? Before I started the career, I started the education that led to that. So the first thing I want to talk about is intentionality. And my first step of intentionality was choosing a university, a school that was focused on what I wanted to focus on, which was business and specifically in marketing. So the first lesson is for you is to really take control of your career search, of your career, of your life. You know, I like to apply a lot of what we learn around career and career search to life in more general ways. So the thing here about intentionality is important steps. Choose your targets wisely. Then take intentional steps of action, moving towards that goal. And that's so that you can hit the bullseye on your target. Now, as we're talking about the target, why you're here today, why you invested time this morning, it's to achieve the career that you want. So later we'll be talking about defining what that career looks like, but understand what your goal is. And today we're going to talk about ways to help you get there. through intentionality. So there's a couple different sides of this coin. So alongside what you want, there's what the market is going to give you in terms of feedback. It's what opportunities it's going to present to you. So coming back to my story, 30 years ago when I got out of school, oh my gosh, I'm old, the business printing industry was hot. So do you guys remember way back when they used to put ink on paper? What a concept, right? Well, back then, that was the way business functioned. And that industry wanted me. And I saw that business development was a pathway for me to ultimately get into marketing. So what you want to do here in terms of your lesson is really test the market. Use validation. You know, if your resume is getting you an interview, great. If not, you need to look at ways you can really customize. If your interviews are getting you callback, great. If not, look at getting some insight. Look at engaging a coach. Look at ways that you can really help move that to the next level. And if your interviews are getting you offers, there you go. Again, look for ways that the market is going to give you feedback. You know, in marketing, we talk about A and B testing. You could even have two versions of a resume and see which one's gaining traction. So understand that you need to listen to what feedback you're receiving to help shape your plan, to help make course corrections if necessary, and to help you reach your goal. Now, something that's important is that you don't want to get stuck. So we're jumping back into my story and jumping 22 years forward. And guess what? I was at the same big company. I progressed in titles, but not fully into marketing. I didn't want to leave that comfort zone. Now, at the end, I was trying to save the sinking ship because, of course, digital technology was eating the lunch of that industry. And I was bringing in outside vendors that had technology plays. But you know what? It didn't work. The company was just shrinking. And the fourth riff cut the last 25% of the company. So for the first time in 22 years, I was on the street looking for work. So I've been where you're at now. So I don't want you to get caught in that in the future. So when you get your next role, and you will, and today will help, is that always be looking for that next step. It's not a matter of being unsatisfied where you're at, but just use the skills that you've used in the career search to keep it going. Because what I want for you is for you to make the decision next time you make a career change. Not to have a company have you make an exit because they're business, but for you to make that choice. So be proactive, do the things we're talking about today and all the other great skills that you learn about here in BoulderNet, and then apply those things so you're always a step ahead. So when I do these talks and I talk to groups, there's always a different level, kind of a spectrum of where people are at in terms of their comfort of doing all these things. Networking, talking about yourself, marketing, branding, all that stuff that is so successful. So what I wanted to do here is just create a visual illustration of what it looks like to be intentional. And it's what I call the growth circle. So the growth circle has two components. In the middle is that comfort zone. This is what you know. This is where you've been. This is that place that feels safe. You could just curl up in a fetal position and stay there forever. That's one option. The second component of the growth circle is the edge. Now, the edge is the place that you have to stretch to reach. It's the place where you have to get out of your comfort zone. It's that you have to take intentionality of action to get to reach. It's a goal. So the question becomes, where does growth happen for you? Where does growth happen? Well, of course, I've kind of given it away, haven't I, by my description. So growth happens on the edge. Now, keep your eye on this infographic. These arrows represent you. They represent your steps of action. Look at what's happening. As you take one step and you figure out you don't die, but you put yourself out there, and then you take another step and another step, look what's happening to that great divide that used to separate the comfort zone from that targeted growth edge. What's happened? You've created a new, larger comfort zone. And now you have a new, larger corresponding edge. And again, we have that cycle of taking steps of action, getting out of your comfort zone. So this is what I call the continuous cycle of growth. And it's a very successful way to run your career search. It's a powerful way to run your career. And I like to expand, as I mentioned. So it's a great way to live life, right? It's getting out of your comfort zone with targeted goals in mind and doing things to reach those goals. So I want you to just keep this in mind. You want to help get out of your comfort zone and move towards those things that really are meaningful for you. So coming back to my career story as the basis for the illustrations, we get into that second part, which is contracting. So after those many years in Big Corp, I found that the world of work had really changed. And one of the ways it had changed was contracting, the gig economy, and all the names we have for it now. But I found a lot of opportunity there. And what I want to talk about here to illustrate is building bridges. It's using relationships. At the end of that Big Corp, I had built a great relationship with the vice president at one of the vendors that I brought in, one of those technology vendors. I created a great relationship. And when I moved into that phase of contracting, he asked me to represent his company in Colorado because it was a new market to them. And because we were successful, and because we had built a great relationship, when he moved again, he became the CEO of a new company. And lo and behold, it was a marketing company. So here's my full cycle. Now I'm fully into marketing. And it was all because of relationships. And relationships come from a lot of different places. And when you're thinking about relationships, think about two different ways to look at your relationship ecosystem, if you will. There's people in your network now, and there's people outside. I call it the known and the unknown networks. So the known network are all those people that you've had contact with in any context: family, friends, coworkers, vendors, people you played softball with, and the like. So you've had some connection with them. Now, what you want to do with your known network is activate it. So let's take those people that you just know and now bring them into the sphere of helping you in your career search. Activation is just about that outreach with intentionality. And in a bit, I'm going to talk about really being intentional and being a talented professional. But when you outreach, it's connecting with somebody. And even if you haven't talked to them in a while, always be a giver before a taker. So when I reach out, when I coach people to reach out to people and they might have not talked about, give them context. Let's say you worked with Marianne 20 years ago. And in terms of that growth circle and getting over the fear, somebody might say, well, why would I reach out? They're going to know what I want. Here's a way to do it. Hey, Marianne, hey, it's been a while since we've talked, but I'm really interested in what you're doing today and your success. I'd love to set a time to chat with you, coffee, Zoom, whatever works for you, just to catch up and see what's going on with you. So again, it's about the other focus. You're interested in them, want to know what's going on in their life. So activate that known network. This is one of the things I do to help my clients, is really leverage these things. The other part is growing your network. So this is that unknown network. And this is everybody else in the world that you don't have in your sphere as of yet. But this is your target audience for growth. And we're going to talk about targeted networking. But this is about identifying people that can be helpful to you in some way and creating relationship through networking. And again, this is one of the ways to help my clients, is to have all the tools, the techniques, the strategies and tactics to do this in a way that positions you well and that helps you get to success. This was mentioned a few times in the introduction phase of this morning. Most jobs today are found through networking. Statistically, over 85% are found through some form of networking. And part of that, a big part of that, is because most jobs are not actually published. They're in the unpublished job market. So don't waste your day all online, all on the job boards, because you're not seeing all the jobs that exist. The networking helps you tap into the portion of the actual jobs that exist that are not published. And they're not published for many reasons. One, companies, hiring managers, they use networking to get the best people. They don't want to put a resume or a job rec out and they're going to get 1,000 resumes that are unsolicited, have to go all through those and have to sift through and go through all the steps. They'd rather start off with somebody that is either known to them already or that's introduced to them, because a warm introduction is gold. It's somebody saying, hey, Dan's a great guy. Dan has talent. Bob, you should chat with him about the business. So you want to go against the smaller portion of your competition and get access to the larger market. So here's those statistics. So 2/3, 66% of people are really using old methodology or looking online all day long. So I want you to be the smaller portion, the 33%, going after the iceberg that sits under the water, that unpublished job market, which is that 80% of jobs are 80% plus are on that unpublished job market. So this is context of what is the methodology to use that's most effective. And when you get those networking opportunities, we use what I call informational meetings. Now, these are much different from interviews, because in an informational meeting, there's this agreement, there's a tacit business agreement that we're focused on business, we're focused on the company. It's not job focused. And this is important because you want to set yourself up to be in the right frame of mind and be presenting yourself in the right frame of perception. It's about putting you in the role of being a talented professional, that confident professional. It's not about being a needy job seeker. You're not. You don't want to present yourself that way, because people want to hire people that they trust to give the keys to their Ferrari and to take it and drive it around that racetrack to reach their business goals. So informational meetings are the way that you network. It's to gain information, it's to share information, and it's to move you down that road towards that job offer that you're looking for. And there's a lot of tools. Some of them were mentioned, right? LinkedIn. It's not magic, but it's the best tool to help you connect with people, to track, to utilize your connections. When you're looking at company X, you put it in LinkedIn, and all the people that you know first degree, meaning you're connected to them already, pop up. Second degree people are people that you don't know yet, but you have a connection. You ask for that warm introduction. Again, these are techniques that I help people utilize. One thing to remember here on LinkedIn, always customize. Customization is an underlying theme about a lot of what I'm talking about today. The application here is that when you send off that request to connect with someone on LinkedIn, customize them. Never send off that stock invitation that has either nothing or the stock message, hey, I'd like to connect with you on LinkedIn. People get 1 million of those every day. Differentiate yourself. Tell them how you know them, what value you have. Compliment them. So these are ways to customize in LinkedIn to get a response. And then be very focused in your activity when you're networking. This is about choosing your targets and about moving towards those things that can help you get there. Now, in talking about that comfort zone, I know that in working, and I've had the pleasure of working with thousands of people in career coaching over the years, and that networking can be one of those things for some people that's pretty challenging. So I want to give you an illustration, coming back to my story, that will help you move away from fear and move towards execution. So back in 2012, when I first stepped into BoulderNet, I had a LinkedIn network that didn't exist. I had 0 connections in LinkedIn because I was insulated. I had my clients, I had my business associated, and it was this small circle. It was working at one point, but it was so insulated, right? So I really understood that this is the way to get out into the business world to create opportunities, is networking, and LinkedIn is one of those tools. So I got on that horse and I rode it. So for the balance of that year, for that first year that I was out in search and using that LinkedIn tool and networking, most importantly, I had created, by the end of that year, met and connected with over 1,000 people. And it was interesting because LinkedIn was having an anniversary that year. And if you were back in LinkedIn at that time, you might remember that they were sending out these emails, kind of a congratulatory, kind of a competition, if you will, about how well each individual had done in LinkedIn in terms of creating connections and networking. People are getting these, you're a top 50% networker. Okay, top 25%, getting better. I saw friends that had top 10%. And back then, there was still 300 million people in LinkedIn. I'm going, wow, that's fabulous, top 10 networker. So I sat home, sat by the computer looking for my email, and I got it. And lo and behold, I got this email that said, Dan, you're a top 1% networker in LinkedIn. And I said, wow. And I looked at the numbers and I said, you know what? That makes sense, because I really put myself out there, got out of my comfort zone, moved to that edge, and I used networking. So this was something that not only became second nature to me, something I love to help other people with now. Because guess what? I like people. I love helping people. And networking is just a tool to do that. And it's a driver in helping drive business success. And because I love it so much, I'm a big connector. I had now over 22,000 people in my LinkedIn network. And now I'm able to give back because this is the way I help my clients. I make introductions. When clients are interested in their career search to get into a target company, I have a connection and I can make a warm introduction. As I mentioned earlier, warm introductions are gold. Making a cold call on somebody that doesn't know you, low success. High success is getting that warm introduction. So use networking to help you. So this brings us to the next phase of the story to illustrate, which for me was that career and life coaching. So here's something I haven't shared in my story as of yet. So alongside that career in business development and marketing, I had been mentoring people. I had been helping people. For me, it was just the way I gave back to the community, pro bono. For me, it was community service. It was ministry. It was the way I help people. And, the term life coaching, we use it now. It wasn't even around when I first started doing it. It means many different things. For me, what it means is helping people gain clarity of thought, defining what they want, taking intentionality of action, and then coaching them, mentoring them, encouraging them, empowering them to reach their goals. So for me, I had been doing that. And it was my passion. Helping people, mentoring is my passion. So this is what I want for you. And this is a core of what I want to communicate today is I want you to find your passion and then connect to it in your career. It's a couple of great questions that you could use to help define that. So if you didn't have to work, if you won the lottery or whatever other way, you didn't have to have a paycheck and all those things that come with work, what would you want to do? So this is defining what your core is, what drives you. It's thinking about the things that you do where you lose track of time. If you're doing something and you don't watch the clock, it means because you like doing it. So these are some things that can help you start to define what you want. But my goal for you and my clients is to help find your passion. Because once we get you connected to your passion, you're more engaged, you're more motivated, and you're more highly productive. And highly productive people are highly valued. Highly valued people get highly compensated and find fulfillment in their work, which leads to life fulfillment. It's all connected, guys. So this is a real key, is finding that passion. What you want to do is operate out of those things that are most beneficial, out of your core strengths, out of your unique skill set. Each one of you today has a very unique skill set. Your experience, your expertise combined to make you very valuable. That's what we want to combine. And often it's combining those different parts of you, things that might have been separate. And this was my story. I had my business career, my business acumen, this skill in identifying market need, of bringing products and services to market, of understanding the target market, the demographics, understanding how to motivate people. This was all great. And how to really project brand value, brand value to a potential consumer of that. The other side, I had this helper, this passion to mentor and to help people. I had created an artificial barrier in between. Those were very separate for me. But part of that was connecting to people that helped me, and I'm going to talk about that in just a second. But it was bringing together those two sides of me that I had separated and combining those to create a really powerful value proposition that the market responded to. Now, part of the way I did that is through what I call the circle of advisors. Circle of advisors is my way to talk about people that want to help you, people that are invested in you in some way. They have your best interest in mind. They provide perspective. They provide encouragement. Now, there's different levels of these people that could be in your circle of advisors. There could be a very formal relationship, even a professional relationship. I'm such a big believer in mentorship that I do it, and I have a professional mentor. Professional mentor might be somebody that's just a different perspective than you have, might be steps ahead of you. It's about objective view. So I have a professional mentor that I pay, and I have a mentoring relationship with them in a formal way. But it could be an paid relationship, but it's still formal. And I have people in my life that I have really took the time and intentionality to create that relationship. You know what? Hey, Marianne, I really appreciate how you've gone about your career, the things you've done and you achieved. I'd love to get your insight. Love to take you to breakfast once a month, create a Zoom, whatever that is. But I'd love to have that relationship where I can bounce ideas off you. Again, intentionality to formalize that relationship. Or it could be very informal, right? I have people in my circle of advisors that really don't even know they're in my circle of advisors because they're peers, but I love to bounce ideas off them to get their perspective. So the point here is that a circle of advisors doesn't come about by accident. You have to be intentional, but it's so powerful. Engage a coach, engage people that you can formalize or have that informal network that you can gain perspective, insight to help you reach your goals. What you're looking for are those points of decision, the tipping points. I call them the light bulb moments. And in my mentoring relationship, I had one of these people that was in the formal, not paid relationship. And she knew I was really interested in really using my full skill set. And she asked me that key question, Dan, if you didn't have to work, what would you do? And I said, I would just mentor people. I love to do that. I love to help people thrive in their life. And she said, that's business coaching. So what she did almost in an instant is she vaporized that barrier that I had between those two different parts and instantly brought it together. And this brought me onto that new track. So for you, I want you to look for those points of decision. Look for the criteria where you say, hey, this is the insight I'm looking for. When I get that, it will help me make a decision to do this or that. It will help you take that step of action. You know, there's something about getting out of the ostrich moment when you have your head in sand and take that first step of action. That first step of action breaks you out of the funk, gets you into excitement and motivation to take that step. That's what we want to do. Connecting to your passion, using that circle of advisors, and then taking that step that will help you get there. Which brings us to the last part of my story, which is professional career coaching. So I use all these skills that we're talking about to move into that place where I connected to that part of me that it was most important, the thing that I was most passionate about, in connecting the formality of business and marketing and understanding people through all the years of coaching and helping people and bringing that together into that moment where I got to that place where I would do it for free, but I love it. And people want to thank me for doing that. And that's that professional relationship. You know, there's an old saying, find what you love and find a way to get paid to do it. That's kind of what we're talking about here. In my terms, it's about finding your passion and then connecting that to purpose. So what I want for you is to have direction and purpose in your career search, launching the trajectory of the balance of your career where you want to land. The first step in that is defining what's most important to you. And I created a concept I call the value bucket. So the value bucket is just this container that holds all the things that are most important to you in your life, the things you value in your career. So do the work if you haven't done that to define what's in your value bucket, the things that will give you fulfillment. Because when you connect to fulfillment in your work, you become unstoppable because you're doing what you love and people value that. That value bucket will help you really evaluate your target companies. When you're looking at jobs and opportunities, it will help you define which companies are connecting to the things that you want most. And you're always looking for two things on kind of two sides of this one coin. You're looking for the intersection of your skills and the company's needs. Because when you find an opportunity that utilizes your skills and matches your needs, it's that point of intersection that gives you leverage. And that's what you want. So be looking for that and use your value bucket, things you want most, to define those opportunities. Where's that the connection of what you have and what they want? One way to do this is to help shape your search, and I call it the rule of threes. So I created this rule of threes for career search to really help you define action, because I know people can get stuck, and I want to get people unstuck. I want to get people moving. I want to get people motivated. So the first thing to do at the top of the funnel, and think about this as a funnel, with the open end, the wide open end at the top. And at the top end, identify 3 target industries. Industries that are most desirable, industries that want what you want. So when I'm using the word top here, the context is your want, their need. That defines a top. So in each industry, then define the top 3 companies in each industry. And now we're starting to move down towards that funnel. So 3 industries, 3 companies each, and we're moving down. And at the bottom of that funnel is when you pick 3 companies for that day to be hyper-focused on. Why 3 companies? Because I want you to be successful. And 3 is an achievable number. You can do a lot of focus on 3 companies each day. What constitutes action on that? A lot of things. Networking, research, talking to people, meetings, interviewing, resumes, all of that goes into that focus, but focus on your top companies. And this also helps you communicate your desires. I'm going to be talking about the branding statement in a second. This is the way you introduce yourself. And at the end of your branding statement, when you're in a networking opportunity like today here at BoulderNet, the last line of that branding statement is when you say, and today, did you happen to know anybody in company 1, 2, or 3? When you have those top 3 companies in mind, you can give the other person targets. Instead of saying, I'm looking for career X, which is too wide for people to help you, company 1, 2, and 3, based on all this criteria we've talked about, then gets them very thinking in a very focused way. And they go, oh yeah, my brother-in-law works there. I'd love to make an introduction for you. The last thing about this rule of 3s is course corrections every day. It's reevaluating. Do this focus, have that focus. At the end of the day, sit back and say, what did I learn about my top 3 companies today? You might say the first 2, those are great. They stay on the list for tomorrow. I found out company 3, now that I've talked to somebody, just doesn't fit. So it comes off. You slot in another one. So each day you're reevaluating. So this is a very focused way to give you help to achieve your goals. And customization. I mentioned this before. I'm going to talk about it even more in context. Customization is really key. For instance, in the resume, you want to get past the screening processes. Those darn automated systems, the ATS, automated tracking systems that just look for the keywords. Well, you know what? If you're going to use a resume, if it calls for it in that instance, you want to understand that you need to customize it. And a keyword is just the phrase, the term that they use to define their most desired skills or accomplishments. One way I coach my clients to execute on this is take the job rec, copy it, the text, put it in your own Word document, and go through and literally highlight all the key words. And when you're creating your resume, make sure you're using these keywords, because one of the things that the ATS does is it counts matching keywords. Now, back in the early part of the ATS, that's all it did is count, but they're much more intelligent. Today, they're using artificial intelligence, which does contextual analysis. So it's not that you just have a laundry list of words, but that you're using the words within the context, within your sentence structure that says you use it in the way they use it, that they want to have it. So contextual analysis is so important. So there's an expected format. You want to make it easily digestible, succinct, and powerful. Not a lot of verbiage that's just dumped. One of the things I help people with is the resume and just making that a powerful document. It's a marketing tool. And remember, the only purpose of the resume is to get you an interview. It's not an end in itself. It's a tool to help you get there. And the interview is where you get to communicate your value that's targeted. And remember, it is not about you. It's about them. It's never about your best skills. It's about your best skills that relate to their biggest needs. That's that intersection that I'm talking about. This is the customization. This is really connecting the dots. Why your skills, why your experience, why your expertise, why your successes relate to what they want. So you want to be relevant. So it's important to understand what they want. Part of that is research. Most importantly, it's the networking, to talk to people in the company. And I didn't say this, so let me be clear. Networking is not just networking with hiring managers. You'd actually want to talk to other people before the hiring managers so you can get context, what's most important to them. In a couple of minutes, I'll be talking about the most important questions. And this is a place that you use those, is to really identify what's most important to the company so that when you get to the hiring manager, you're on point, you're prepared. This is a way to do it. I want to talk about a paradigm shift, a way to think about something that's different. You know what's so interesting? I mentioned earlier that I've had the opportunity to coach thousands of people, and I often get people coming back years later talking about great connection, the ways I help them, and there's several things that people come back and they say, Dan, this was the thing that really was meaningful for you. This is one of those concepts that people talk about a lot. And it's about shifting the paradigm away from an interview and shifting your mindset into what I call a business meeting. To illustrate this, I want to give you a little compare and contrast, to paint a picture here, a word picture. So first of all, if I asked you who in this group has been in a business meeting before, and I said, give me a show of hands, every person here, of course, would raise their hand. So what is a business meeting? Well, it's when two or more people come together. They focus on the business. They're focused on overcoming the challenges of the business. They're focusing on bringing value to the business. They're focusing on helping the business achieve its goals. So keep that in mind. That's the definition, if you will, of a business meeting. Now, I want to talk about interviews. I want to talk first about contextually why this concept is so important. It's the psychology of this. It's natural. And I'm sure all of you at some level have experienced fear and anxiety around interviewing. Why? Why does the human mind go there? Well, the mind says it's my one shot. I've been doing all this work to get in front of somebody, to interview, and now it's all on the line. I've got 1 hour to prove my case, to show my worth. My gosh, if I blow this interview, I don't get a job offer. I don't get a job offer, I can't get a job. I can't get a job, I can't get a paycheck. If I don't pay the paycheck, my family is living on the street. I mean, our mind just goes down that road. So what we want to do is arrest that train of thought and replace it with positive, motivational truth, the truth of who you really are. So what is an interview? And I want you to think about that picture I painted of the business meeting. An interview is two or more people coming together, two or more people focused on the business, two or more people focused on the challenges that the business has, its obstacles, its goals, how you drive success. So you know where I'm going with this, don't you? The interview is the same as a business meeting. It's the same thing. It's your mindset that's different. And this is where you can take control. So I want to be very specific. Here's my offering today. I want you from this day forward to change the way you think about interviews. In fact, I'm going to encourage you in your mind to never even use that word interview again. Replace it, substitute it with the phrase business meeting, a meeting. So when somebody says, hey, Dan, we like your resume, we talked to you, we want to bring you in for an interview. In your mind, I want you to substitute in business meeting. Why? Because you go, you're great at business meetings. You know how to prepare for, you know how to communicate in, you know how to execute, you know how to drive success through a business meeting. So from this day forward, use that term business meeting. And it's creating a new habit. In fact, I'm going to try to do it today. So whenever there's a word interviewing, I'm going to try to substitute with business meeting or meeting. So that's a paradigm shift. So this is the way that you can do that. And part of that business meeting is when you introduce yourself. This is the branding statement, as I call it. The branding statement is your prepared, practiced statement of value. This is how you introduce yourself. It's the way to start off a meeting that's very powerful because you're focused on them. That first part of the branding statement is what you're known for. It's that target title. Now, it's important to understand this is not the title you had yesterday. It's the title you want to have tomorrow because this is a targeted, forward-looking, aspirational statement. And then you talk about the things you're known for. And the way I coach is to highlight the top 3 skills that you have that they want. And then the third sentence, the last in the core statement, is your passion. And it's the thing you want most because it's your biggest skill. Now, this is important. Hear me. This is not your passion. It's the company's passion. Again, connecting the dots. So you're connecting my word passion with what's most important to them. So that is that branding statement. And when you use your introductions later, try to use that. Here's that target title and some value. Here's my top 3 skills, what I'm known for. Here's my passion. And in a networking sense, you'd include that 4th sentence, which is, and today, my top 3 target companies are A, B, and C. So that's the way to do that. So in that interview, understand that today they're using a context and a structure called behavioral interviewing. It's because they know the best predictor of your future behavior of them with them is what you've done in the past. So they ask those interviewing questions that are behavioral based. Tell me about a time when, give me an example of. So that's behavioral based interviewing. So understand that that's the way to do it. The way to be successful in behavioral interviewing is to use your success stories. These are the stories from your work history that show that you have the skills they want, that you've overcome challenges they've had, that you've driven success in a way that they want success, and that your skills are aligned. So I have a whole process I use when coaching this to help you develop, practice, and become confident. Confidence is so powerful, is to become really confident in sharing your successes in a way that people get it. Part of this is the human psychology of the listener. If you just throw data at somebody, data kind of comes one ear and out the other. But people connect to story. Humans connect to human interest story. And I'll let you behind the curtain a little bit today. The reason I framed all of this information that I'm giving you today around a story, my story, is for just this reason, because people connect to story. Oh, there's some context here. I'm hearing about Dan and his journey, but you're getting information. Same thing here. So I help people create success stories that become very powerful. Now, the other side of a business meeting is that it's a two-way conversation. A typical interview is when you're getting grilled and just giving answers to their questions. That's not what we want to happen. We want to make this an interaction, a business meeting, a two-way conversation. So come prepared with questions, questions about the business, questions about the role. Now, I talk about using intelligent questions, and intelligent questions, in my definition, are questions that lead back to you as the answer. So you never want to ask a question that doesn't have you giving a response ultimately and connecting to what they say is important in a way that conveys your value. So using intelligent questions help get you to communicate. And even asking an intelligent question can communicate your value, because you're conveying value about understanding in the question that says you understand them, their business, and then you get their feedback. When you get their feedback, the answer to the question, then you can focus in on what they're saying is most important. So that's during the meeting. But you know that typically the last question they ask you is what? Do you have any questions for me, Dan? Right? So the worst answer to that question at the end of the interview is no, I have no questions, because that shows you're not engaged, you don't care, you're done. That's the wrong. What you want to do is have prepared questions. You can always, and you keep these in the back pocket. You don't want to use these during the meeting. You want to use it at the end when they come with this last opportunity for you to ask questions. So there's a couple ways I coach my clients that are very powerful. So the first is really connecting and cementing in your value. So again, I'm going to use a compare and contrast here to illustrate why this is so important, functionally and psychologically. Some people, and this is again what you do not want to do, some people want to take all the barriers off the table. They want to say, I want to find out if there's anything that they don't like about me or that I'm missing. So they ask that question at the end of the interview. Hey, is there anything that I'm missing that you haven't seen? Now, on one hand, you say, okay, this could be beneficial. You're kind of getting all the roadblocks out of the way. But I want to let you understand what's happening psychologically. So to do that, I want to paint a picture. In an interview, let's say it's an hour interview. So for that hour, that 59 minutes up to the end, you've been really conveying your value. You're really talking about all the value you have and how you're going to be best for them to help them achieve success. And if you use this incorrect method, a method that's not best, let's say it that way, what you're doing is putting the brakes. You're stamping on that brake pedal and saying, stop. I want you to forget all the good things you just heard about me. And Mr. Hiring Manager, I want you to think really hard. And I want you to tell me all the ways that I am lacking, all the ways that I'm deficient. This is the wrong strategy. It takes everything and just sucks the wind out of it. Do not do that. Okay, now here's what you want to do. You want to ask a question that gets them connected back to what's most important to them, that they see value. So a way to ask that, for example, is, now that you've had a chance to talk with me, What do you see in me, my skills and experience that shows I'll be the best candidate for you? So the psychology here is now they're going to think about this last 59 minutes and say, wow, well, Dan, here are the top 3 things that I saw that show that you'd be great for me. So this is a way to end on a positive note that connects value. And you can even paint a word picture that helps them get in that train of thought. So listen to this question, and then I'll explain what it is. So Mr. Hiring Manager, when I'm here, when you've chosen me and I'm here, and I've been here for a year and I've been successful, what are the measurements, the key performance indicators that show I will be a success for you? Now, psychologically, for that hiring manager to answer that question, they have to go through each of those components. Okay, I hired Dan. That's big. This was a worldwide search and he was #1. Good thing. He's been here for a year. This guy sticks. He's here for the long haul. He's been successful. That's what I want. Okay, what are those KPIs that will show Dan's successful? So by using a question like this, it really gets them thinking in the mindset you want, and you get more information. You now know what measurements they will use so that you can reconfirm how you will achieve that. And in the role, when you get it, how you'll prove your success. Now, these questions so far have been focused on you. It's very powerful and you want to get focused on them. So the last question in your prepared questions could be to turn it back to them in a positive way and say, and Mr. Hiring Manager, that is great that now I know how I'll be successful, but I want to help you be successful in our business, our division. So what are the measurements that show you'll be successful? Because I want to make sure I help you and our division, our department be successful. So again, prepared questions that keep conveying the message of value over and over. Very powerful. I alluded to this earlier. In my many years of business and driving success, I really distilled it down to 2 key components that define how you'll be successful and how you'll help your company be successful. It's first defining how they define their success. The question is the goal question. What are the goals that they have? What do they define as the most important achievements that they want to reach? And by the way, when I'm working with my clients, I have a process to teach them in depth how to ask the questions, how to get the information, how to respond. But the essence is asking the question and then relating it to, showing how you will help them reach their goal. So question number 1 is, what is your biggest upcoming business goal? The second question is the most important one. It's the obstacle question. So what are the things that will hold the company back from achieving what they just said is their #1 goal, their top goals? So the second question is, now that you have defined those goals, what are the obstacles that the company has that hold you back from achieving your goals? Now, here's the important point, guys. When you become the answer to the second question, the obstacle question, you get hired. Because people hire people to solve business problems. They hire people to help them overcome the things that hold them back to help them reach their goals. So you want to be the answer to those 2 questions. And there's a very specific and powerful process to do that that gets you there. So the last part of my story to connect all the dots here is becoming a certified career consultant, certified career coach. I found a company, the largest company in the world that does that in Lee Hecht Harrison, LHH. Became a certified career consultant and executive coach because I was doing what I'm coaching you guys to do, which is to be passionate about what you do. I was successful because success follows illustration and execution of passion. I was fortunate to be rated top 1% of all coaches in North America in the company. Because I had that success, the company wanted me to help bring it to a wider audience and coaching all the region's career coaches. So I was promoted to vice president and had the opportunity to help create a larger wake, create more impact positively in lives and help people thrive. Now, here's something you might not know about LHH. It's a pure B2B model, meaning that the only people that could get coached through LHH are people that have a corporate sponsored program. So corporations pay LHH to give them coaching when they're either executive coaching or in career transition. So you as an individual, if you didn't have sponsorship, couldn't go to LHH. Well, that doesn't work for Dan because I want to help people. So what I did is created the organization that I'm talking to you from today, which is my Thriive Career Coaching. It's the way that I help people on an individual basis get the motivation, get the understanding, get the tactics and the strategies to help them be successful, to help them achieve those things that they want most. So that's the completion of that story. So to summarize it, what I want to help you do, what I'm encouraging you to do, is find your career passion and really articulate that, communicate that in a way that comes out of your passion, that connects with what they need. So it's moving with intentionality. It's using network to drive that success. Build that network, execute on that. Customizing everything. Know your target audience. Speak to them in a one-to-one basis. Make everything relevant to them. And be bold. Because remember where growth happens? Growth happens on that edge. So be bold and help execute in that. So just as a reminder, I'll put it back in the chat. So I have that opportunity to connect with me one-on-one. We'll set a time for a Zoom to help you do that. So send me the email. Now, what I want to do now is open this up to some Q&A. So I'm going to stop the share and I'm going to pull it back to full screen. And here's what this time is. This is now your opportunity. Your opportunity to get your questions answered, gain clarity or more depth on anything I've shared. So this is where it really comes down to you. So I want to open it up now to any questions or points of clarification on anything we've talked about today. So who has the first thought or first question?
So I'm curious.
James, hang on a second. I'm sorry.
Battery
Sure.
to 100%.
Okay, go again. My speaker cut off there. Go ahead.
That's all right. So I've heard of a couple of different sort of interview methods, and I'm curious what your opinion on them are. One is referred to as STAR. That's an acronym.
Yes.
And one is CAR. So I'm curious if there are others, if there's one that you suggest over the other, as far as like structure, all that kind of stuff.
Great question, James. Great question. The answer is yes, you want to use a methodology. So that's the first thing. And the second is, well, what's best? So let's take those in two steps. Why does STAR, CAR, or my method, SOAR, which I'll talk about in a second, why do we use those? It comes back to that concept I talked about earlier when I was talking about behavioral interview. Because they ask these questions in a form that says, tell me about a time when, that leads to a story. And all these structures are ways to create story of success that communicates your skills. So STAR is a great one. Situation, task, action, result. Now, I've modified that to what I call SOAR. So I take out that second component, which was task. And for me, the task is just what some company told you to do. Okay, that's fine. I substitute in there what I call the obstacle. This is where it becomes very powerful because what you're talking about in that component is what the challenge was that the business had. Because as I mentioned in the two big questions, when you overcome an obstacle or a challenge, you become specifically valuable. So the methodology I teach, which is setting yourself up where here's my overall value and the success I'll create. Here was the business challenge. The actions are what your skills are that led to success, and the results are the business successes that you created. So great question, James. Yes, use a method. That's one of the things I do with my clients is really create confidence and help them become powerful communicators in how to tell their story. So good stuff. Excellent. Good. Who's got the next question?
I have a question. This is Danielle.
Hey, Daniel.
I'm working on targeting my companies that I'm wanting to learn more about. And I believe that I do best in small to medium-sized companies.
Okay,
I'm
good.
not seeing many of those on the job boards or LinkedIn to try and kind of focus in closer. What is the best method to find out about small to medium-sized companies?
Great question. And it comes back to that stat I mentioned the iceberg. Most jobs today are not published. And a lot of those in small companies, even more difficult to just look online because they're not paying all the money and it's expensive for people to advertise for jobs. So then what's the answer to the question? It comes down to that networking. So everything I talked about today, they all sync and relate. So this comes back to a couple concepts. Comes back to that rule of threes. Identify the industries, then those companies, Once you identify the companies, then you can use LinkedIn or other tools to find out who you know in the company, either somebody that you know directly, and you can ask for that other concept informational meeting. If you don't know somebody, you probably have a connection to someone who does know somebody, and then you ask for that warm introduction. And again, getting out of that comfort zone, people sometimes have challenges or fear around asking for an introduction. All you're saying is that, hey, Bob, I see that you know Marianne at Acme Company. I'm really interested in the great things going on there. Would you make an introduction for me? That's it. You're not asking them to, endorse everything you're valuing. You're just saying, would you make an intro? So networking using all those steps, Danielle, that's the way you identify those companies. And then you network in to create a connection, understand what's most important, two big questions, and then you can convey your value, source stories, and all the like. So again, all this connects in. So, but great question. So you're doing a good thing because you're identifying the type of company, which is kind of at the top end of that funnel that I talked about. Good stuff.
Thank you.
Good, good, good. Let's keep going. Who's got another question? Frame it a different way. Well, I'm sorry, does somebody have a thought there?
This is Don. Did somebody else have something? Well, I just want to say, I think that was very probably the best and most helpful BoulderNet presentation we've had in years. Did you say you have over 22,000 LinkedIn connections?
I'm at 21,800, I think is my exact number.
How on earth? Wow. Okay.
It comes back to that intentionality. I just decided that this is valuable. And for me, at first, it was about helping Dan in my career. Then I said, man, people need warm introductions. So as a career coach, I became very intentional and developed a methodology to connect with companies. And companies want to connect with me because they know I have talented people like you that need roles. They need great people. So I become a conduit. So intentionality and action. And yeah, it's pretty fun.
That's probably
Dan,
good.
I like your approach about changing the kind of the paradigms. I know when I got out of college, they kind of taught me, okay, you're out of college, go look for a job, right? And this is how you do a resume, right? And at that point, I'm getting old, right? So this was the mid '80s, and
Sure.
the resume in the mid '80s was here's a word picture of your job, of your job skills, a word picture of you, right?
Yeah.
And so when I got laid off in 2015, that's what I was sending out, right? Was just a word picture of who I was, right? And so when I finally got to the workforce center, Deb Blankenship, very nice lady, kind of told me, I understand why this resume is doing nothing for you because, it's crap, basically. Not her words, my words, right?
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it didn't serve me at all, right? For how jobs were looked for in 2015, right?
Yeah.
And so the paradigm shift I needed to make was that, the job ad is really sort of an RFP, right? And
Sure.
the resume really is a proposal, right? At least that's the paradigm shift that I needed to make, right? So that's how I now think about sort of the job search, is that the job ad is a request for a proposal, and my resume needs to be a very customized proposal in response to that RFP. And that resume that I had been sending out, which was just this kind of standardized form, was absolutely inappropriate for this very customized proposal that they were sending out. This very customized RFP that they were sending out, right? So,
and Trent, you're making some really good points, and it's about many things we've talked about today. Customization. Don't let the resume be the only touch point. That's just when they ask for it. You want to network in, and they want to have them request a resume. That's the point at which you want to do that. So thank you. And I love that paradigm shift. That's so important.
Yeah.
A few more minutes. James, I see you got a hand up. Do you have a thought or question?
I do. So Dan, you talked about the rule of three, which I think is interesting because I feel like that feels still like one of the things that people will tell you the opposite of. It's not about a few people, it's about getting as many resumes out as possible because out of 100 you'll get 2 replies, right? Sort of deal. So I'm interested in that. I feel like I've been on that path for the last couple of weeks at least, in some way. But as you're sending out resumes, and you're kind of doing that daily assessment of, do I keep pursuing this? Is this something that's still worth the time? So, for instance, I just got a rejection yesterday from a company within an hour of sending my application, which could easily be the automated system, right? Just like counted me out of the running. In which case, I could potentially like revamp my resume a little bit more and apply again, and potentially get through to a person. But like, you know, even if I submitted to some people 2 weeks ago, like, and I've, you know, follow up or like went to their LinkedIn, did whatever, like
Yeah.
when is the juncture? When does it make the most sense to say, okay, let me drop this and move on? Even if I come back to it later, like in that rule of three, what is the kind of metrics that you would say, okay, let me add one of my others to this, or oh yeah, let me continue this process with this one?
Yeah, great question, James. You asked so many important things. A couple things I want to hit on is, you know, those ratios you were talking about with the percentages, the rule of three, when to do what. And it really is interesting. You know, you said that, you know, just sending out those resumes, people saying, don't do that because, you know, you're getting 2 responses out of 100. Yes, if you're using that methodology where you're just submitting for jobs, just sending out resumes online or whatever, then that's the kind of percentages you're going to have. That's why we say that networking needs to be that paradigm shift about the primary approach. You want to talk to people that gets you invited into the process. That's when they ask for the resume, ask for the application because they have to have it, that's fine. But you don't want to do it beforehand. You want to do it after you make those connections. And the when to move on is, it comes back in a sense to the rule of threes, because I said every day you're reevaluating what are your top prospects, top are what you want, what the company needs, and the things that are most likely to land success the soonest. So those are all criteria that you're using to evaluate where you want to place your effort. You want to place your effort on the things that are hottest right now, the things that have the greatest likelihood of succeeding. So you don't totally shut something off, but you move more things to the back burner, pull things to the front burner that are most important and have the highest success rate, and then utilize those things to help you achieve success. So that's a really good summary of that. So I know we're coming up to time. So let me conclude with this. So what I wanted to do today was to give you some insight into some of the best ways to go about getting what you want, is to really motivate you to connect to your passion and to move from that place to get the career that gives you fulfillment, to be successful in this process of career search, get a career that gives you the fulfillment. I love doing this. This is why I get up in the mornings, to help people. So again, send me an email to that email that's in the chat, and we can set up a time, a 20-minute conversation to talk about your specific situation. But I want to say thank you. This is a gift for me to be able to talk to you guys. So thanks again for this opportunity, guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Dan. Trent, do you want to stop recording, please?
Sure.
And Hari, back to you.
Well, good. I have to jump off, but Hari and all the other organizers and everybody, great talking to you today. Let